You are very welcome along to the RTÉ Rugby Podcast, coming to you from the Brighton and Hove Albion Stadium. Unfortunately, Ireland beaten by New Zealand 40 points to nil. The Black Ferns, the defending world champions, will top Pool C. We'll find out a little bit later this evening who Ireland play in the quarterfinals. France and South Africa yet to come. Fiona Coghlan was on RTÉ commentary duty this afternoon, and she stayed behind to record a podcast with me. Fiona, hard to know what to say about that game. I think had it ended 26-0 after a bit of an Irish rally in the second half, our opinions might have been different, but I think you poke a bear like Ireland did against New Zealand last year and they're going to want to make you pay, and they didn't stop until the 80th minute. No,
and they were the way they spoke all week about it, like World Cups are different, and that was really sitting heavy on them. This was the game that they wanted, to go after, and they certainly went after it. And yeah, I agree with you. We might have looked a little bit differently, 26-0, but not scoring any points it was hugely disappointing. We always had concerns about their defence, particularly in the last two games, but not being able to get over the trial. And when they had entries into the 22,
because they had plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, early in the first half, in the second half as well, they were held up over once, but their attack just seemed really blunt. And credit to New Zealand, their line speed was excellent, and some of the hits going in were huge. But they didn't really challenge New Zealand's defence, like it made it easy. They just came up and hit, so that was really disappointing.
Does it sometimes happen when you get a game like that where one team's defensive line is so aggressive up off the line that an attacking team can sometimes become a little bit static just in anticipation of it? I feel like we saw that a lot of times with Ireland, where there were ball carriers catching the ball with their legs planted, not running onto it and being caught behind the gain line. We saw a lot of opportunities end. Ireland would get into promising positions, like Aoife Dalton early in the second half, get down towards the try line, and an attack ends maybe 15, 20 yards back.
Yeah, there was the odd few line break, but you said it there, like we slowed down our own ball, that static nature, but there was space out wide, but they didn't worry about it. They were like, Ireland can't get the ball there, and we didn't manage to get the ball there. So, incredibly disappointing. That double line of attack, we didn't really see at all. It was literally just one out runners, hit it up and see how you go. And then when we did get the odd go forward ball, we slowed our own ball down at times as well. So yeah, frustrating, very frustrating from attack point of view. And then obviously in defence, those concerns are still going to be there. And I just don't know if they're going to fix them in a week for a quarter-final.
Yeah, let's get into them, because I think they were the glaring element of today's game, where New Zealand really, really exposed Ireland. And we saw it right across the game. There were, on a couple of those tries, at least two of them, there were instances where Stacey Wacker, the New Zealand centre, is getting the ball and just is one-on-one with an Irish defender, gets around them, and all of a sudden you've got the 2-on-1 outside. That narrow defensive line got exposed on a number of occasions, and New Zealand kind of just toyed with Ireland at various stages in that. You had a brilliant, real crunching tackle from Bevan Parsons on Portia Woodman-Whitcliffe, and all of us, just when you think Ireland are maybe kind of getting on top of them, they just move the ball outside, the numbers aren't there, and they run in tries.
Yeah, like that, the narrowness of it. Stacey Wacker is class, by the way, and the way she's able to take players on the outside and go forward and then take them on the outside is really impressive. At times,
just stood them up.
Yeah,
completely stood them up.
At times Ireland's scramble defence was good, but then they execute so well when they get into those positions. And I think one of them, Eve Higgins, had gone to full back and she went across and she was there to make the tackle, and then Sorensen McGee just steps back on the inside, and yeah, they finished really well. But it would still concern me about the gaps, or even the amount of gain line carries that New Zealand got. That just gave them go forward ball momentum, and that created more space then on the outside as well. So really disappointing from a defence point of view.
We had injuries obviously as well for Ireland during the game. Now, it wasn't the making or breaking of the game. It was 12-0, 19-0 when Stacey Flood went off injured. The update from Scott Beamond is that it's a cut on her foot. It isn't as bad as they first feared. It didn't look good when she was taken off. It was just one of those really unfortunate ones. Grace Moore comes up with an excellent jackal penalty at the breakdown and just steps backwards. And I think anyone who's played rugby has had one of those, where a teammate just moves backwards and lands on your foot. It was a real unfortunate one. But Eve Higgins also goes off late on in the game as well for a head injury assessment. Scott Beamon said she should be okay, but again, you're just going to be playing wait and see on that. And Adele McMahon came off early in the second half, looking in a little bit of bother as well.
Yeah, and particularly when, we probably don't have that depth. You want as many players fit going into that quarter-final. Stacey, it sounded really bad. She sounded an awful lot of pain on the ref mic, so hopefully it isn't as serious as it looked and it sounded. With Adele McMahon, it looked again to be that reoccurring knee injury, and then Eve thankfully was out afterwards, so hopefully she's past that HIA. But again, the physios will have a busy week reassessing everyone because Grace Moore was down a few times. Like, it was a very physical game, and you've limited time to kind of recuperate the body. I know it's a week, but to recuperate the body and get back and try and get freshness in your mind as well. Like, to get it, like, I thought they were going to lose, but to get a drubbing like that and the scoreline, that's a tough mental one to take.
Yeah, and particularly because they started the first half really, really well. I think a lot of us probably coming into this game might have thought how you start is almost how you end in a game against New Zealand, and set out with the right intentions, were aggressive early on with a penalty and kicked it down into the corner. And they were, Ruth Campbell tried a little move down the blind side here. Ruth Campbell gets knocked into touch, then did a chance over on the far side as well, and it was probably just a little bit too much zip on the pass from Avian Riley to Brittany Hogan, when maybe a little pop could have done. There were big chances to get off to a bright start.
Yeah, look, there was, I think it was about 10 minutes they were camped down here, and to come away with nothing is a real blow as well for New Zealand to be able to just transition, and they go from defence to attack so quickly as well. But I give credit to New Zealand's defence as well. I thought it was really good today. They were so aggressive. Some of the hits going in were just absolutely huge, but to not get a return on that, I thought they started the second half quite well as well in terms of their ruck speed. They were clearing out really aggressively, but then a turnover ball and New Zealand just go and do damage. It's very tough to take.
Like, let's talk a little bit more then about that New Zealand defence, because it was so aggressive. It was really, like, I'm sure a lot of people you could probably pick through and say maybe they were flirting with offside lines at times, but they knew what the boundaries were and they certainly played them. And Dan O'Brien had a torrid afternoon just dealing with the sheer pressure they were giving her.
Yeah, it wasn't just her, it was across the whole team. First of all, some of the double hits going in, the confidence to go with a double hit, that you're not leaving people exposed out wide. In the wider channels coming up really hard. Stacey Wacker put in some huge hits, and it's really hard to attack off that. You need to create something else to get the ball into those wider channels, whether that's the cross-field kick, whether it's playing with a double line of attack, whether it's taking to line and try and look for little dog legs that were there, which we didn't have answers for. But New Zealand done their homework with the way that Ireland were attacking, and they just didn't give them any opportunity.
And it was almost like we've spoken about Leinster last season, where it's almost on that second phase of defence where they're most dangerous. And we saw it a couple of times where there were half little breaks for Ireland. I mentioned the Aoife Dalton one early in the second half as a great example, where just as it looks like you're getting forward and you've got that half break, they meet you 10 metres behind the line. Yeah,
and like their work rate to get back was unbelievable. Any time that Ireland made a break, even the Niamh O'Dowd break around the fringes, just their work rate was phenomenal, and they were just so hungry for it as well. Like, they were making everything count. A lot of bitterness there from last year, but they were making every single tackle count. And I think their coach will be very happy coming away with Ireland not crossing the line. That 0 is going to be very nice for them.
Talk about Braxton Sorensen McGee. I know we wax lyrical about the youth, the young Irish players coming through, and how young the average age of this Irish team is. Braxton Sorensen McGee is 18 years old. Hat-trick again this week. She's absolutely lighting it up, and there's something about the way she runs and moves. Doesn't actually look like she's moving particularly quick, but just seems to slide around players.
She
almost
glides,
a little bit like Mac Hansen, I almost think.
Yeah, she's a classy player at 18, and just really slight, but she doesn't share contact. She makes a count when she hits contact, and yeah, she's going to be a superstar of the game. Like, it's so impressive what she does. But like across the board, like Georgia Miller was outstanding. Like, she's 21. Sylvie Brunt, player of the match, 21 as well. She's a World Cup winner already, and yeah, they've some really talented players.
The big question then, I suppose, is looking ahead to next week. Half-time, as we're talking here, half-time in France, South Africa, it's 24-3 to France. So let's not commit to an answer just yet, but just for the sake of it, 24-3 to France. How much of a confidence dent do you think this game has been? How much of a confidence dent do you think those last few minutes have been? Or was it a confidence dent at all? Do you see Ireland picking themselves up? Sam Monaghan was talking inside. She seemed, I would say, fairly level-headed given what had happened.
Like, I do think they have to pick themselves up, but of course it'd be a dent. Like, Spain and Japan scored points against them, and Ireland didn't score anything. So it will be a dent, but they've done a lot of work on their culture, on their tightness, on that green wave, and you would hope that something along that will bring them through. And I think number one though is the fitness of players. I think that's number one, and I think you're always going to do limited amount of training, but try and fix a couple of things out there today. But the defence has been an ongoing problem.
How imperative is it to get Aoife Wafer back on the pitch? It was promising to see her going through the warm-up before this match. She obviously didn't take any part in the warm-up last week.
Yeah, look, she's a big game player, and I've no doubt if she comes back, I wouldn't be worried about match fitness or anything like that. I just hope that they don't risk her unless she is you can deal with pain, but if there's any sort of weakness there, which I'm sure they won't. But yeah, it would be brilliant for the squad to have her out there, just the impact that she makes. You were talking about those go forward balls, she's one of their biggest ball carriers, but yeah, it would be huge, but they need everyone back.
If you're trying to be the eternal optimist and pick apart what were the elements that you can kind of cling on to over the next few days, what are the moments of the match that Scott Beeman, when he's sitting around with the team in the next couple of days, can put it on the projector, point up and say, look, these are the positives we can take, these are the things we just need to build on?
Yeah, look, I think in the nature that they don't give up. Like, I know that last try, it was a bit soft to go from your own 22, but Ireland didn't give up. Like, they were fighting the whole time. So he'll take a lot from that. He'll take from the line breaks or opportunities that kids get, but he'll say, well, why aren't we finishing them, and work from there. But a lot of work to be done in a week.
Final couple of points, and even away from the game. Well, I suppose one of the more disappointing aspects was Ireland just couldn't score, just to give the occasion something and the supporters here something to cheer on, because it has been an unbelievable weekend in Brighton. Even yesterday as well, when the Irish fans started coming in. The noise here was absolutely incredible. It's probably the biggest, I would say, home crowd these Irish players have probably ever played in as well. I was talking to you before the match this afternoon. You obviously had a big reunion of ex-players yesterday, and like you were telling me, for example, you'd ex-teammates and players who played before you as well outside, like getting genuinely emotional at the size and scale of this game.
Just where it's gone to, it was an amazing weekend. I think Brighton has been brilliant. The stadium has been brilliant, but the fans, like, I think everyone had this penciled in their diary from when the fixtures came out, and it was always going, because they'd obviously just beaten New Zealand, and it was always one that people thought, right, we have a chance there. But beyond that, beyond what happened on the pitch, it was unbelievable. It was about 80 ex-internationals, and as you said, some of them were brought to tears by the crowds coming in, the number of young kids in Irish shirts that are fans of these players, that know these players, and just where the game has gone to, both on the pitch and off the pitch, it has been brilliant.
Yeah, no, it was an Ireland-dominated crowd, but the New Zealand fans who were here were loud. I can say that. There were a few of them sitting right behind me.
To be fair to the Irish fans, they were still shouting, even though Ireland didn't give them a huge amount to shout about. They were engaged in the game, and you know, even after the game, the players, in fairness to the Irish players, after a tough defeat like that, you know, went around and thanked the players thanked the fans, and got the selfies taken, which is an important part of the game. You know, get the fans, let them know you're there, and thank them for the support.
On to Exeter next week. Can they pick themselves back up off the floor?
Bloody hope so. It's a quarter-final, it's knockout. Yeah, like hopefully, yeah, I think they can.
Well, let's hope it's a result to match an occasion like this next week in Exeter. It's finished at the Brighton and Hove Albion Stadium. New Zealand 40, Ireland 0. Ireland finished second in the pool. They will play either France or South Africa next weekend in Exeter. We will have another podcast midweek ahead of that game, and looking back on this defeat for Ireland as well. So until then, we'll speak to you again soon.